So we have the money. We do own part of T-Mobile, and it would be great to give T-Mobile a real facelift if an NBA team were to come in.
NHL team owner Bill Foley wants to bring an NBA team to Las Vegas. That's this week on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstedt.
Welcome to Nevada Week. I'm Amber Renee Dixon. Bill Foley brought Las Vegas its first ever Major League Pro sports team, and now the owner of the NHL's Vegas Golden Knights wants to bring an NBA team here. What plans are in place, his current level of commitment to the Golden Knights now that he owns multiple international soccer teams, the economy, and his support of President-elect Donald Trump. I recently asked the billionaire businessman and founder of Fidelity National Financial about all that and more. So, Bill, the last time that we spoke was at your ranch in Montana in 2020, and that was where you were holding the virtual draft for the Golden Knights. Yep. It was that first year of COVID. Since then, you have heavily invested in soccer, football clubs. You have a Premier League team in England, a team in the A-Leagues, that is the top league in Australia and New Zealand, and then ownership stakes in a French football club and a Scottish football club. Yep. There are so many teams you are now involved in. Which is your priority?
Vegas Golden Knights. You know, we live here, so we're here October to, until we win the Stanley Cup, if we're fortunate enough to win the Stanley Cup. So we're here during that whole period, but I can still make trips. And I go to UK usually 3 times a year for about 2 weeks at a time. I don't really go to travel to Lorient. It's inconvenient, and it's a minority ownership.
Is that also a reason perhaps that you don't go there, is because they kind of protested your ownership stake?
I think I'm okay now. They were irritated because we bought one of their players, Dango Ouattara, who's one of our wingers, and they felt like they were selling that player and didn't want to sell him. But really, the team in football, a team has to sell players to stay within financial fair play. You've got to show profitability and you do that by selling players.
Well, and that particular player went to your English Premier
He did. And
League team.
At that time, we owned 40% of Lorient, and so in my mind, we paid, I think, 20 million euros for Dango. But we really paid ourselves 8, so it was a cheap deal.
So the opposition, as I understand it, is that, you're taking our players, you're buying all these different clubs, these football clubs, and then you're cherry-picking players. What do you say to that? I mean, these are teams that have had rich histories, maybe family-owned, and they're saying, who is this guy coming in and making this almost like a minor league system?
Well, really the players want to move on, and we lose players at Bournemouth because we're a small team, and we just sold our striker from last year, and we sold him for 85 million pounds, so it's a lot of money, and so that gets us back into financial fair play, and then we have to buy a striker. So if we have a series of teams that are developing players that can play at Bournemouth, they want to move up. They want to play at Bournemouth, so people understand it.
Yeah.
Some don't like it, but people understand it.
How involved are you in recruiting or scouting players in soccer, football, versus, because you've been very hands-on with the Vegas Golden Knights in the NHL?
Yeah, I go to all the scouting meetings with the Vegas Golden Knights, and I spend days at a time with the pro scouts and the amateur scouts, because we have 3 or 4 scouting sessions a year. On the football side, we have great analytics and we have scouts. But we don't have the level of scouting that you have in hockey. Hockey, it's a lot of eyes on. So we have a really robust analytical system that spits out players from around the world. And so if we're looking for a winger with certain characteristics, a left-footed winger, for example, they'll give us a whole bunch of examples, and then there might be 50, and then we go through those 50 and cull it down to maybe 3 or 4 that we're interested in. Then we go watch that player. So it's kind of the analytics first, and then observation second.
Is that part of the reason why you do prioritize the Vegas Golden Knights? Because I asked you which one you prioritize. You said the Golden Knights, and then you said, well, we live here. But, you know, you could prioritize these other teams that you just barely are getting involved in.
Well, I love hockey. I played hockey as a kid, and I love hockey. And I love what the Golden Knights are to this community and what we've done for the community. You know, we were really part of the fabric. We were the first major league sports team that came to Las Vegas. And we're proud of that, and we've stayed local. If you go to our games, you won't see that many opposing fans, opposing jerseys. You'll see our jerseys, and that's the way I like it.
Yeah, and you do that methodically. You have a method to make sure that opposing teams' fans are distributed somehow?
Absolutely. We know who they are. We know where the tickets are being bought. So we have a rule that they're generally down in section, I think, 210, and we allow 4 to sit together, and then if there are more fans, at least one free row must be separating them, and they must be offset. well, I think it's irritating. You know, I don't want them cheering for their team. It really works in the playoffs. The playoffs is really important not to let these guys from Edmonton buy half our tickets.
All right. As we speak, we're about 2 months into the Golden Knights season, 8th season. Right now they are in first place in the Pacific Division. There were some concerns going into this season, rebuilding the offense, for example.
Yeah, we lost some players, but we knew we'd probably lose players. It's just inevitable. You have players you really like and you want them around, but hockey players are a little bit fungible, and they get older and they get slower and they stop playing good defense. And these guys like Marshy and Stevenson, Carrier, a few of the other guys had contracts coming up. And this was kind of their last contract, so they were looking for a payday. And I can't blame them. But we made fair deals with all of them, offered them a fair transaction. But in the meantime, we knew some of them were going to leave. So we took action at the trade deadline, and we brought in Hannafin as a D-man. He's a really good D-man, a great skater. And we needed help on the power play. And so we brought in Hurdle, who wanted to come play for us. And he's on a long contract.
What do you think about the Knights' playoff chances this year?
They say if you're in a playoff position at Thanksgiving, you've got a better than 90% chance of making the playoffs. I believe we'll be in the playoffs. And I believe we can win the Stanley Cup this year.
There were some media outlets that said this might be a rebuilding season, but I thought, knowing Bill Foley, does he even believe in rebuilding seasons? I
don't believe in rebuilding. If you're rebuilding, you're losing, and we don't want to lose. So we build our team or maintain what our team can do, really by trading for vets, trading for someone who's got a long career ahead of them, like Jack Eichel has. We got him, I think, when he was 24 or 25, and he'll be with us until he's 35 or 36. So we try and get that elite player. What the guys tell me is that if we have an elite winger, an elite centerman, and an elite forward, and a good goalie, we can win. And we have every one of those things.
You also have a pretty good defense.
We have a great defense. We're probably the best defense in the league.
Yeah.
I'm not being modest either.
I want to clarify on Jonathan Marchessault, because he was 33, looking for a 5-year deal. It was reported that this was about contract length versus money, but you did say some of these guys were looking for a payday. Was that different for him, though? Was his more about contract length?
He wanted a long contract, and we offered him. I think we finally got to the point where it was a 3-year contract, which is a pretty good contract for a forward who's 33. Because then if he played well, he'd get another contract. And I know he wanted to stay here. And so the money was about the same. We had another problem. We had cap problems. So in hockey, we operate within a very strict cap. If we go over that cap, then we're in trouble. We don't play a player. And we offered him a transaction where there was some deferral. It was going to be the same money he got going to Nashville, but part of it would be deferred until after he retired. And he didn't really want that, which I can understand.
Now I know what he means by when he said that was intriguing, but I'm not interested. Yeah. You bring up the salary cap. What do you think about the current state of the salary cap? It could potentially change with this upcoming new collective bargaining agreement.
I have confidence our commissioner is going to maintain a salary cap for us. It's one of the things that makes the NHL so different. We have hockey-related revenue, which is about half of our revenue, but we're limited to spend it to a certain amount of money, but we have to spend a minimum amount of money. Now, we always spend to the cap, and if you have someone on LT, a long-term injury reserve, that comes off your cap. See, people get mad at us because they say, well, you spent 110 million, you're only supposed to spend 87. Well, we have people that were hurt, but we're going to play within the rules, but we're going to play within the rules, and period.
I thought you might have almost said something a little different. Well, how do you explain that to people? I guess it's part of the rules.
It's part of the rules.
We can have someone on injured reserve, and that doesn't count.
Robin Leonard's on injured reserve, so he has an insurance policy, or we bought an insurance policy. So I think we pay 20% of his salary. So if he's on a $5 million a year payday, the insurance company's paying $4 million, and we're paying $1 million. So you can actually afford it.
And any thoughts on Robin Leonard? You bringing him up. What a unique kind of strange story it's been with him as far as bankruptcy and a reptile farm.
I don't, yeah,
bankruptcy related to that.
Yeah, I don't know his personal life. I know that he has some mental health problems, which I'm sure he's trying to work on. So it's too bad because he's a very, very talented person, and I doubt he'll ever play hockey again.
Are there any learning lessons from that?
Well, you think you can learn something, but then sometimes you get in the moment, and you think you need this person no matter what, and you bend a little bit. We try and be very careful about our players. We try and make sure we have players that are first or team first, that want to play for the team. They have to be high character. The first time we did our initial meeting with our scouts, they had about 6 criteria that we look for. It's like skating ability and how they handle the puck and how they do certain things. And at that time I said, there's the number one criteria for our players has to be character. Men of character. And remember, it's team first, or goal first, really, winning, then team, then it's management and everybody else, and that doesn't matter.
I do remember early on you telling me that all of my players, people are going to be okay with their daughters dating.
They are, and of course they have dated a lot of daughters, and they've married a lot of local daughters. I mean, Carly did that, and they are a prolific group. They all have like 3, 4, 5 kids. It's unbelievable.
But all of them. I mean, what about Ryan Reeves? Do you think that fathers of local daughters wanted them dating him?
He's a pretty good guy. I mean, he's really fun. He's a fun guy. I hate to see Revo go, but again, he'd gotten to that age point, and we just couldn't make a deal with him. And I'm glad he went to the Rangers, and now he's up in Toronto. So he's got survivability.
Who has been the most difficult player watch leave?
Yeah, it's probably two or three for me. Schmitty was really tough. It was early on. He was part of I think he was part of the Stone transaction, and I hated to see him go. The guy I really liked and liked his family was Marc-Andre Fleury. He was such a good guy. I still think we made a mistake. We should have kept Fleury, and we could have given him a couple more years in the starting position, and we went the other direction with Leonard. So that he was a favorite. And Marshy, who cannot like Marshy? He is so he's very egotistical, but it's in a really good way. It's in a way to motivate and to generate interest in the team. So if he's always been a favorite of mine.
Back to the collective bargaining agreement that will be in place in 2026. What do you want from that?
I leave that to the commissioner. He's a very smart guy, and he'll protect the league.
Okay, because if I understand it correctly, there has been a cap on the salary cap of how much it can grow each year. Would you like to see it increase significantly?
If it increases significantly, the owners will be their own worst enemy, and we'll all spend to the cap, and we'll all lose a lot of money. So if we can keep a hard cap as it is now and grow it reasonably, that's the best thing that can happen for the league. It creates parity. The games are fairly even among all the teams, except those that are rebuilding, which never works. I think Buffalo's been rebuilding for 8 years.
So CNBC ranks the NHL teams each year based on how much they believe that they are worth money-wise. Recent valuations, CNBC estimated the Golden Knights to be worth $1.85 billion, 14th out of all the league's 32 teams. But then you think about back in 2016, you paid for this team with $500 million. Where does this investment rank in terms of the many, many investments you've made?
Well, it's bad. We paid 500, but we borrowed 250. So I really view it as, and we've now paid the 250 down to about 160. So we paid it down a bit. So that's a pretty good rate of return. It doesn't quite compare to C-Day, in which we made 80 times on our money, which is really good. But
elaborate on that.
It's a stock. It's a stock that does human resource management, and it moved to the cloud, and it really reinvented itself.
When was that?
We just sold our last 1 million shares.
Congratulations.
Yeah, except it's gone up 20 points since I sold. Very irritating.
What can you do? You did call that Golden Knights investment, though, risky. One of the biggest risks you've taken. You told that to Barron's.
Well, it was risky because we're coming to a city that's never had hockey. It's in the desert. So when I first started talking about it, I was laughed at. What are you going to do? Are you going to put on skates and skate on the sand, and all that sort of stuff? But we were completely foolish. We did a market study, and we determined that there were 140 back in 1916. There were 140,000 avid hockey fans who had all moved to Vegas from somewhere else, and I knew if I could connect with those individuals, and they're not casino owners. They might be croupiers, or they may be teachers, or they may be lawyers or paralegals or doctors or nurses and so on. I knew if I could connect with those people and convince them that we could do something like bring a professional sports team here, it would be unbelievable. And we had to be entertaining. That was important.
Now you would like to bring an NBA team here. And the only way I know this is because I watched a video that was made when you were inducted into UNLV's Business School Hall of Fame. I haven't seen it reported anywhere else. Where does that stand?
We've not made formal contact with the NBA. They know who we are. We are one of several that has a group that's been put together. So we have the money. We do own part of T-Mobile, and it would be great to give T-Mobile a real facelift if an NBA team were to come in. So we have a lot of things we're working on, but there'll be more revealed later. And I learned from my time with Gary Bettman that I should not speak to anything about what a commissioner might do or might not do, because he laid it on the line for me. I'd never been talked to anybody like he talked to me since I was a plebe.
And has he circled back with you on that conversation?
We talk about it periodically. I think he's proud of me because I predicted we'd win the Stanley Cup in 6.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I have that exact clip from when I was with you at your winery in Sonoma. And you compared this process of a hockey team to the development of grapes. Can we listen to that real quick?
The vines really aren't hitting maturity until they've been in the ground about 6 years. So you can't rush it.
It's interesting though, because with hockey, you've
Can't
always
rush it.
said you've always said kind of the opposite though, that you
Playoffs
you
and-
have a quick timeline of
Playoff.
success.
I don't think it's quick at all. Playoffs in 3, Stanley Cup in 6. Period. No excuses. That's the standard.
You did it.
Set unrealistic expectations and then exceed them.
You want to make any other predictions? When are the Golden Knights going back to the Stanley Cup?
We're good enough to do it this year.
So you don't want to set an expectation, though.
Not just yet.
Back to the NBA a little bit more. How many groups do you think, or are you aware of, that are trying to get an NBA team here?
I've heard of a couple of others.
A couple, okay. And so then there is one group that wants to build an arena south of the Strip, Blue Diamond area, I believe.
Yep.
They say no public money. They're not going to use public money. But it's been kind of quiet on that front. Do you think a new arena is going to be built?
I believe a new arena is a waste of time. T-Mobile is a perfect place for an NBA team to play. We have a plan in place to spend about $300 million to improve T-Mobile, add seats, add hospitality, add suites in particular, and upgrade the park. And that's kind of what we're working on right now. And I believe it should be done irrespective of basketball, because hockey, we need a better arena. And so we're working with MGM and AEG.
You told me off camera before this that it's a tough time to build.
Construction costs have gone through the roof. We built the Henderson Arena, Lee's Family Forum, for a total of 90 million, 6,000 seats. I was speaking to a fellow who owns part of the Firebird Arena in Coachella Valley. And I said, well, how much did you spend? They said they spent $300 million on an AHL facility. So it just shows you where costs have gone since we've built some things.
How would you describe the economy right now?
Well, I believe it's going to get better. People are concerned about tariffs, and they're concerned about Trump's going to do this and Trump's going to do that. All he's going to do is he's going to use tariffs as a negotiating tool. And if he does his job, he'll end the war in Ukraine. He'll end the war with Hezbollah and Hamas. We'll have a strong military, and the border will be secure. And I believe we're going to have a really good economy. And his cabinet picks, with the exception of one or two, I believe are really good.
Tell me which two are not good.
I didn't think Matt Gaetz was a good pick. And the other one is still in the queue. I'd rather not say.
Okay. Now, according to the New Zealand Herald, which I found interesting, does American media ask you about your political leanings?
No.
Aha. So was this the first time, as you go into international water, so to speak, that you're being asked, who do you support?
Yeah, they hate Trump down there.
Okay.
And I did move away from him in 2020 because I just got kind of sick and tired of it. But when I look, now I'm a libertarian, so don't get on me for being a conservative Republican. I'm a libertarian. Leave me alone. Let me do what I want to do, and I'll leave you alone, and you can do what you want to do. But I went back to Trump, and I believe I was helpful.
Financially.
With
donations. Okay, so you had told the Herald that Trump was a narcissistic egomaniac. Was that in relation, I believe it was in relation to his denial of the 2020 election results?
Yeah, and it was back in 2020, and I believe he's improved a lot. He's not, if you said something nasty about him, he just went after you. It's kind of silly.
You don't think that's going to happen this time around?
I think he's my age. He's got to mature eventually, doesn't he?
Last thing on that, you said that you did donate to Trump because, quote, I'm terrified about the alternative. Mm-hmm. What did you think the alternative would look like?
I think we would have had open borders. We would have had more inflation. We would have spent on things we shouldn't spend on, which is basically illegal immigrants come in, they get money, they put up in a hotel, and the guy that just got convicted of murder got a free flight to Atlanta and then went out and killed a beautiful young woman. So I'm not happy about that. And I have security, and we live in a nice house, and it's a gated community, so not quite at risk as a lot of people are, but I just don't like where America was going.
Did you vote here in Nevada?
Oh, of course.
I wondered because, you know, had you voted in California, your vote may not have made much of a difference, but here it sure does.
I'm a Nevada resident.
Okay.
And I have been for 9 years.
All right. December 14th, I believe that's your birthday.
29th.
29th?
Yeah.
The internet has it wrong. You will be turning 80 years old.
That's why I'm disposing of certain assets.
Which assets?
Generally involved in public companies, things I've been doing for years and years, and I spend way too much time on them and too little time on what's really fun, like the wine business, football, hockey. That's where I want to spend my time.
What's your succession plan?
You know, that is a problem, isn't it? In terms of my personal assets, it's pretty well lined up with my son, who he runs our farming operation, and we have about 6,000 or 7,000 acres of vineyards, and he's heavily involved in the Golden Knights, and he loves football. And my youngest daughter is completely ingrained in our wine business, and my oldest daughter is a money manager, so we've got our money being managed properly. So I think I'm set up okay.
Doesn't sound like a problem then.
No, I'm not worried about it.
Bill Foley, thank you so much for joining Nevada Week.
It's great to be with you, Amber.
Bill Foley is also our guest for Nevada Week in person. That episode debuts Saturday, December 14th at 6:30 p.m. It'll also be on our website, vegaspbs.org/Nevada Week. And I'll see you next week on Nevada Week.